Hello, my 2700 class. How are you guys? This will be an InDesign review. I believe that most of you guys have already taken InDesign, so I think this will be a good refresher. And I'm going to break this lecture up into a few different segments so that if you have a specific specific question on adding pages, text, images, etc., you can go straight to that lecture. And we will be going into each one of these topics in more depth as we go through this semester and you continue to work on your portfolio. Again, this is just kind of a general overview. So this first lecture that we're going to do is the overall interface in InDesign, how to start a new document and change the size. Now, one thing that I want to note is that my computer is set up on a Mac, and so I might look a little bit different than what you see in the lab or maybe at home, but the majority of things should be the same. So to start off, I have on my screen several documents that I have already worked on in the past. You can see I use it quite a bit for personal things and also for school stuff. I'm going to go ahead and go to Create New over here on the left side, and it's going to open a new menu for me that goes through several different types of documents that I can open. And I'm making this a little bit bigger by dragging on the right side just so you can see it. Now, right off the bat, if you are using InDesign for the first time or the first time in a while, you might notice that you don't have anything in recent. Again, I use this quite a bit, so it's all listed here. And another thing that you might notice, if you go to print, which is most commonly what we will use in class, you might not even see these things listed in inches. You might see it listed in picas. So let me change this here. Your screen might look something like this. So although these didn't change, you can see that it changed over here. So right off the bat, I'm going to show you guys how to change your units, and it might be slightly different on the PC side of things, but you should be able to go up to the top of your menus and go under InDesign and then find Preferences, and we should be able to go to Units and Increments. Now, I believe on a PC, Preferences is much further down, but it should be under InDesign Preferences or File Preferences. Again, I'm going to be slightly different because I'm on a Mac, but once you find Units and Increments here, we only need to change a couple settings. So by default, it might take you to General, but I'm looking for Units and Increments, and what we want to change here is ruler units. Because we're not actual graphic design professionals, we're using this as interior designers. Let's go ahead and change our horizontal and vertical to inches from picas. I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that, and I'm going to go back to the Create New menu. And remember, at any point you can pause this lecture and walk through these things on your own. But now if you go to the print menu, everything should actually be in inches rather than picas. Okay, so we've got the 8.5 by 11, the 11 by 17, and what I'll do for this example, since we are beginning our semester talking about our branding package, I'm going to go ahead and make this an 8-inch by 8-inch document. That's what I've asked for in the branding package. It's square, so the orientation doesn't matter. And I'm going to go ahead and keep it on facing pages. Now, for most of you guys, you already know what facing pages are, but in case you don't, I will also review that in this lecture as well. I won't go over margins or bleed and slug just yet. I'm going to go ahead and click on Create, and we'll get a new document open here in just one moment. Now, you guys will see my computer's a little slow, so it's going to take a minute for it to create a new document. There's my lovely spinning rainbow wheel. Usually it doesn't take this long, so we'll give it another couple seconds and hopefully it finally opens. Yay, at last. Okay, great. So again, I'm going to approach this lecture as if you haven't opened InDesign in a really long time or you've never opened it before. I typically like to set up my screen. I'm going to go to Window. So unfortunately you can't see where I am clicking right now, but I'm clicking on Window. And under my workspace, I like Essentials Classic. And the reason why I like it is just about a month ago, InDesign updated what its screens or its interface looks like. I'm not quite used to it yet. So for now, I'm going to go back to the screen that I know, which is Essentials Classic. If you guys have gone through InDesign before with me in previous classes, it was also in InDesign Classic. So if you're familiar with this, let's go ahead and hang out here. We get our toolbars where we're used to them. We get these menus the way that we're used to them too. So our quick tools on the left and our larger menus on the right. And again, that was Windows, Workspace, Essentials Classic. Okay, so let me briefly go through what we're looking at here. All of you guys have taken 1250 digital graphics, and whether or not you went through InDesign, this workspace should seem familiar because just like Photoshop, we've got all of our quick tools here on the left. Just like Photoshop, by default, you should always be in the Selection or V tool. You can get there again by hitting V or Escape, and this is what your cursor should look like on your screen for the majority of the time. If I go into a couple different shortcuts, so I'm just kind of toggling through a few. You know, it's not bad, but it's always good to end up here at V, to where you get this kind of black arrow. It kind of ensures that you will be selecting and not creating or moving content that you didn't want to be creating or moving. Over here, we have the Pages menu. And again, you can click on this page and then reopen it. And I've got page 1 here. And down here, if I want to add new pages, there's this Create New Page button. So I can click on this and add new pages. You can see now I've got 5 pages. Another way that I can add new pages is to right-click on a page and go to Insert Pages. And that way, if you wanted to add like 20 pages all at once, you could add 20 pages and tell it exactly where to go. So you could do after page 5, before page whatever, at the start of the document, at the end of the document. So you have lots of control here. I am not talking about master pages up here, and I'm also not talking about the master pages that are listed right there yet. We'll go over those a little bit later in the semester. That'll be a later review. So now I've got way too many pages. I've got like a 25-page document. And if I wanted to delete pages, you can see that right now page 25 is highlighted. And if I click this little trash can, it deletes page 25. If I want to delete more, I can click on a page. And if I hold my Shift key down, it selects all of the pages between those two numbers. So again, click on a page, hold your Shift key down, and then click on wherever else you want to delete. I'm actually going to just go up to 5 pages here, or maybe 6, sorry. So again, I'm holding my Shift key down and then the delete button. So now I'm back to 5 pages. Okay, so just a quick way of adding new pages. Now, let me explain the concept of facing pages. This is a little bit hard to do online, but I will try my best. So imagine that I am holding a magazine, okay, or holding even a book. That's what facing pages are. So for example, if I were holding a book, this would be the cover of my book. And when I opened my book, so imagine this is opening, this is essentially the inside cover of my book, and this is the first page. Coming down here, this is the back side of my first page, and this essentially becomes the second page of that book. So again, if you want to hit pause right now and grab a book and kind of compare those pages to this here, what this really allows you to do is do a book layout. And in our case, it lets us do a portfolio layout so that we can work with covers and then the fronts and backs of pages. When you start a new document, you might want to change some of the settings. So for example, some of the settings that you might change would be the page size, the margins, those types of things. So let me start with page size before I even get to margins. If you want to change the page size, and again, I'm sorry the top of the screen is cut off, but you would actually go to File, Document Setup. So again, File, Document Setup, and it will take you back to a menu where you can say, okay, right now there's 5 pages, so you can do 20 pages there. You can click off of facing pages, and in fact, if I turn on preview right now, you can see live how this affects your document. So I can change this back down to 1 page. I can change this back to a letter size. You can see that it changes it automatically. And you can also change your margins while I'm in here. So I'm actually going to make this an 8 by 8 again. And with my margins, I'm going to make these really small. Maybe I'll only make them 1/4 of an inch. And if this chain is on, it makes all settings the same. If you click off of this, it kind of breaks that chain. And so maybe on this left side right here, where you might be binding it, maybe you want that margin to be a little bit bigger. So I hope you can see right now that this pink and purple line are graphic indications of what your margins are. So these won't actually print. They're just there as a visual reminder. You can still put content outside of this. It's not like Microsoft Word where you won't be able to type past this. So again, it's just a visual indication of what your margins look like. So I'm going to click OK. And again, I got here by going to Edit, and that was Document Setup. I'm sorry, File, Document Setup. Okay, and I was able to get through everything right here. So I'm going to hit cancel on that. For those of you who have used InDesign in the past, we had to go somewhere else for our margins. So it's really nice that now we can get margins in that same menu. You don't have to come to margins and columns. So again, margins and columns also lives under layout, margins and columns, but they've done us a favor and everything is under document setup now, which I think is great. So coming back over here, let me add a few more pages. Okay, these are now single pages. And if I wanted to go back to the book layout, which is typically what we work in InDesign, I would go back to Document Setup and turn on Facing Pages. Sorry about the beeping in the background. My dishwasher is done washing the dishes. It's very proud of itself. So here are those 3 pages that I have. And let me go over a few just kind of navigational tools. So right now on my screen, it is what's called preview mode. So if I hit W, it toggles back and forth between preview mode and work mode. So I'm sorry, right now it's in work mode. Work mode essentially shows all of the margins and non-printing items. But if I hit W again, it goes into a print mode. So you notice that those margins disappear because those are non-printing items. As we go through some of the lectures, you'll notice a few other things turn on and off, and that includes our frames, rulers, guides, things like that. So again, that shortcut is W. W toggles back and forth. That's a good one to remember. I use it quite often. So far the keyboard shortcuts that I've shared with you are V for the selection, and I've also done W for the preview. Okay, so this was just the first really simple lecture on how to open a new file and change your page settings, including your margins, how to add and delete new pages. And the last thing that I'm going to show you while we're in here is if you want to save it, you can go up to File, Save, or Control S. If you're like me and you're on a Mac, it would be Apple S. So while I'm in here, I'm going to do Apple S. Remember, my computer's having a bit of a hard time tonight. And I am going to go ahead and save this in my Creative Cloud files. I'm going to put it under SLCC. I have so much stuff in here. And in my summer semester, I'm going to make a new folder and call it 2700. And I'm just going to call this example 1. And I'll come back to this a little bit later. I'll keep working on this. But that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead and do another video. So the next video will go through how to insert basic text. And then the video after that will be how to work with images. And then last but not least, how to export a PDF. So I will see you all in just a minute.